The war in Yemen has been raging since 2015, leaving the country divided, its infrastructure destroyed, and millions of people on the brink of starvation.
Yet for much of that period, with journalists struggling to gain access to the country, it's been low on the global news agenda.
Until last week, when an attack on Saudi Arabian oil depots was claimed by Yemeni-based rebels. It resulted in the biggest spike in oil prices in 30 years and sparked global reaction.
So what's been happening in Yemen, and why should you care? In Yemen, in basic terms, you've got two sides. On one side is the internationally recognised government, and on the other side are the Houthi rebels. Each is fighting for control of the country.
The Houthis emerged in the 1990s. For years, they were a small insurgency, mainly based in the northwest, but during the 2011 uprising, part of the Arab Spring, they came to major prominence.
And since then, they've continued growing, ballooning as civil war erupted. They practice a type of Islam that's different, but similar to the Shia Islam practiced in Iran. They're supported, and many say armed, by the Iranian government.
On the other side, the Yemeni government is backed by an alliance of nations led by Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Saudi Arabia is the centre of Sunni Islam and a major rival of Iran. It controls the airspace and seas around Yemen and has prevented imports into Houthi-controlled areas, causing widespread food shortages, leaving 20 million people in need of food aid.
Already you can see the regional tensions here between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Now add to that the involvement of the US, and you've got another layer of tension. The US provides logistical support to the Saudi-led coalition, stuff like in-flight refuelling, as part of a US-Saudi alliance that goes way back to the 1940s.
That alliance is based largely around ensuring consistent and stable oil supplies, with Saudi being the world's leading oil exporter and the US one of its biggest export markets.
So that's the background. Now, the war itself has seen the Houthis gain control of much of the northwest of Yemen near the Saudi border. For the early part of the conflict, they were relatively lightly armed, but in the last 2 years, they've been launching attacks across the border with rockets and drones.
These have been largely ineffectual until, apparently, the attack on the oil depots last week.
Drones, or something similar to that, damaged key pieces of infrastructure in northeast Saudi Arabia, far from the Houthi-controlled part of Yemen. The attack was immediately claimed by the Houthis.
With the grace of God the Great, the Air Force has completed a wide attack using 10 drones. This mission comes as part of our legitimate and natural right to react to the crimes of the aggressor and its continuous blockade on our country for the past 5 years.
But the US blamed Iran.
There's an enormous consensus in the region that we know precisely who conducted these attacks was Iran. I didn't hear anybody in the region who doubted that for a single moment.
If it was the Houthis, it was a huge military success, the scale of which they hadn't previously achieved inside Saudi. But was it Iran? No, says the foreign minister.
We reject these types of statements and projections. The Islamic Republic of Iran has clearly declared its support to the people of Yemen and their rights. But to accuse Iran of these attacks and defensive measures is in line with the United States' maximum falsehood policy.
Now, the timing of all this is interesting. Let's take a step back and look at other events in recent months and years in the Gulf. The tension has been rising between Washington and Tehran since Donald Trump pulled out of the Iranian nuclear deal and imposed sanctions on Iran in mid-2018. He claimed Iran was enriching uranium at excessive levels, despite inspectors saying otherwise.
The US sanctions have done significant damage to the Iranian economy, and the rhetoric has been escalating as they take hold. That tension reached a new level between May and June this year.
Around then, 6 oil tankers were damaged in an attack near the Strait of Hormuz, some coming from Saudi, others from the UAE. Then Iran shot down a US military drone in the area, and the US appeared to respond with cyber attacks on Iranian missile control systems. It all seems to be brewing something, and all this as the two, Iran and the US, remain on opposing sides in the still ongoing war in Syria, where another major US ally, Israel, is concerned about the Iranian presence on its border.
Whoever attacked the oil depots in Saudi, they increased tension yet further. Now, Iran says it's ready for a war, while Trump says the military is locked and loaded. What happens next is anyone's guess.